Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of Unfiltered Wrestling. As ever, we're by Tim. Hi, Tim. How you doing?
I'm not too badly. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks, mate. So we've just had the week after WrestleMania, the Raw, the most anticipated Raw of the year, and then obviously SmackDown just passed on Friday. A bit of a mixed bag again, I think. I think Raw was a bit iffy, but I really enjoyed SmackDown.
I totally couldn't disagree with you at all. Raw had some highlights, some very low points, but SmackDown was an overall a much better show. I can't argue. I think they're building further after WrestleMania.
Had John Cena kicking off the show to sort of come and explain what sort of his next stage was. What did you think of this segment?
I think he came out really well. He was still getting cheered, and I think this is something that WWE are going to have to get used to. He will get cheered wherever he is. Excuse me. He did well afterwards to turn the crowd. He's done a really good positive promo. I like the numbers on the screen. If he continues to show the amount of dates he's got, people are going to get more. There's going to be more anticipation around him every time he's near the ring. But again, Randy Orton comes in, gives an RKO, and it's worth probably mentioning if we jump to SmackDown, the second promo that these two had was it was great fun. I mean, John Cena actually managed to make Randy Orton crack character with the comment about the 6-year-old and flipping him off. I think that was magic. I'm looking forward to the match. I know it feels like it's 2009 again, and we're redoing the Cena Orton feuds, but this match has me highly looking forward to it. I can't wait to see it.
And I think it's a very clever piece of writing that they leaned into Orton's family history now. So obviously with the line Cody's on, when he says wrestling has its royal families, it's not just Cody's family. And then you think back, oh yeah, Orton's dad, Orton's granddad, he's a 3-time generational superstar. So he's now fighting for his legacy, which I think is really clever. They led into if they didn't have much time to get this ready, if this was a rushed next step for John, because obviously all the stuff that happened with The Rock, which we won't go into. And the fact that the writers quickly come up with this story, it adds to the storyline of it's not just an Orton Cena 2009 feud. There is a bit of legacy and family on the line again, which I think is good to draw people back in. I'm wondering, is it too early for these two to have met? Because they're not going to take the belt away from John so early.
I actually think it's the right move if you sidestep. With Kevin Owens now being away, Orton needed something big, and this for me is the right move. He shouldn't win that match. He shouldn't beat Cena for the 15th title. Cena needs to win that match. It needs to be, dare I say, a really dusty finish again, so that Cena can come off looking a little bit more like a good heel, because his work he's doing, his heel work at the moment, he's doing really, really well. But I think it is the right time. I don't think you had to pull it out too long. I think it's just get it done now, get Cena his first defense, and then go from there.
In a way, the only way to end that match is like a DQ or something, like a no finish, so either man doesn't get pinned. Because obviously where Randy is fighting for legacy and stuff like that, if Randy loses, then he sort of goes back to the bottom of the pile again, where if you have a no finish, I don't know if Cena brings someone out, that, like you said, to make him like a super heel and stuff, and at least they can rest it for a little while. If they need to return to it before John leaves, then they've still got that option to return to it.
Just in the rumblings of Cody coming back,
Right.
And then building I don't know how bad this will be, like a 1998 WCW superstar and TV star, or in this case musician, coming out for a match. I don't want that. I don't need to see Travis Scott wrestle. He's stiffer than a piece of wood. Let's not get him involved in a ring. But I, on the other hand, think Cena needs to pin Orton. I think he needs to get through this. It be like a really rubbishy finish. it shouldn't be the main event, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that. It shouldn't be the main event for Backlash, but it should certainly be probably the semi, and I think it needs a little bit of a dusty finish, if I'm honest.
What were the other highlights of Raw, would you say? Like,
highlights. This is the problem. I'm struggling. Well, let's talk about the big one. Let's talk about Seth Rollins and the new two-man power trip, him and Bron Breakker. Absolutely losing my mind. I can't wait to see these two go at it. We said that Bron Breakker needed something after Mania, and this was the right thing.
Yeah, and I think it's exciting where they can go. I think it's good that he's got Seth and Heyman with him to really build him up as the next. He's going to be the next superstar of the company. 2 to 3 years' time, he's going to be the man with all of his shoulders, and I think he can't go wrong with having Seth and Heyman be them people to guide him at the moment. So really looking forward to see what them guys are up to. Think it was a great move to do after an underwhelming WrestleMania finish. I think to end Raw the way they did with that angle, I think it just made it feel a bit more exciting again. So I'm like you, I'm really looking forward to what comes next.
Yeah, I think that's got to be a tag match. I think that's got to be Reigns and Punk versus Breakker and Rollins. And I think that's got a main event Backlash. That for me that's the thing I'm looking forward to. I don't see how Rollins doesn't win that match either.
Yeah, and I think they could be able to play well the dynamic of Punk's and Reigns' relationship. Obviously, we see him in the cage at the Survivor Series, blocking each other coming through and stuff. That can play into the match, and then that can lead to a Punk Reigns program. Why Seth can then go off and Bron can go off and do their other things. So I think you're right, it should be main event, and I think it can break away to a nice little tree breakaway for storylines. So I think that's a really good. It's a nice setup, and I think like you're right, because what they've got 3 weeks to build Backlash, so it's a nice little small thing to build Backlash up.
I think it's only 2 weeks.
It's 2 really weeks in quicker.
Yeah, it's a crazy amount of time. I think the big question for me is: do you move from a duo to a trio? Do you add someone else to that party just to make it feel a little bit more? And if you do, who's it going to be?
That's the question. See, but then do we? I know it wouldn't be the bloodline as in family members, but then do we head down the bloodline route if you then have a trio or even more? I think it's nice to stick with a duo, like a power team that can have single moments as well.
Yeah, no, I always think, because you've got the two-man power trip when you had Austin and Triple H, be it for a short period, that they were those two. I think the other way you'd look at it is possibly an evolution moment. Do you go and build, you have your superstar with Seth Rollins, and do you have two guys that are a little bit lower down the card that you can mould into something a little bit more? I think that's the question I'm asking. I'm not sure who you would put for a third person, because it's got to be somebody that you can think you could build up on. And I don't know where that goes from right now. I'm really struggling.
Yeah, do you bring someone up from NXT? And then like make them debut over the next couple of weeks and they join the Power Faction if you're going down that route? Because I didn't think of the Evolution route, but that's quite a good, look what he did for Randy and look what he did for Batista. So they know the formula works. So that's quite a good shout. But then, like you said, who's that other person is the big question.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know who you could add to make it work as well as Evolution did.
And moving on with Raw, we had a couple of returns. So we're now back to Rusev Day every day. So happy Rusev Day.
Absolutely. I'm so glad to see him back. He looks in great shape. I like that he kept his hair short. I like that he went through and ruined somebody to get his moment. Although whether that should have been the tag match, whether it should have just been a singles match, but he's back. He's looking good. And I think it's a really positive for me.
just hope this time round they don't sort of demoralise his character and sort of turn him into a joke. I like Rusev when he's serious and when he's mean. So I'm hopefully they're going to keep going the way they've started with him. Because I was a big Rusev fan first time round. So like you, I'm glad he's back.
Yeah, I like him. I think if you follow some of the blueprints that he had when he was in AEW, and I say some of the blueprints,
Yeah.
he's gonna be fine. He'll do really well. The question is, who should he first face? Because again, he needs to get on that card. He needs to start working his way up. I'd probably chuck him in with the likes of Ludwig Kaiser, that kind of level of match. And that's where I would go with it. The other big news coming out of it was Becky Lynch turning heel again.
Oh yeah,
that was a mistake. That's a wasted opportunity. From what I gather, Bayley isn't injured after all. This was all the plan. I don't see how this is going to work. I think if you're going to turn anyone heel, it should have been Bayley, and then have Becky come back and save her. That would have worked for me. Becky didn't do very well as a heel last time round. I think she's going to struggle this time round. Although it could make her face, I don't know, Io Sky quite interesting along the lines. But I think overall, yeah, I'm not overly impressed with this one.
Yeah, and I don't think Becky returning at Mania was a big enough WrestleMania moment. Like, it was good to see her back, but I would have been just as happy if she'd done it on Raw. So I think they just sort of ruined that WrestleMania moment for someone like Bayley as well. Bayley is a committed person to the company. There's a couple of interviews where she says she doesn't go down, breaking down doors, saying, no, I'm not doing this. She just goes along with it. And I think that still hasn't been given her flowers for that. I think what they did to her at Mania was a bit out of order. They could have just done that more, like she said, and it still would have been the same sort of feeling with the moment. So yeah, I do feel quite sorry for Bayley.
And don't get me wrong, I'm looking forward to seeing Becky going back on the roster. I think she looked great. The movement was brilliant, but I just think it's a wasted opportunity again. Well, maybe I'll be wrong, and I don't mind admitting I'm wrong, but I think this one's not going to work, not long term.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out as the road and the journey for Becky continues. Anything else from Raw that stood out for you, or
Jay Uso's celebration with Sammy and Jimmy in the ring? This is great. This is a wonderful, heartwarming moment. I'll be curious to see if he gets a title defense on Backlash. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't. And I'd be curious to see who he's in a feud with first, because he's going to need somebody. So I'm glad for him, but he needs to have another good match after this. As I said, I don't think he's going to have a short reign. I think he will drop the belt probably at Money in the Bank, but I've got my idea on who he should drop it to. I think that links into the tag match that we mentioned earlier. I think Seth's got to be the guy to beat him, which is why I think Seth and Bron need to win that tag match.
Yeah, and the thing, so with WWE's got us as fans so susceptible to when people return and having feel good moments, because every minute and a half I'm waiting for Sammy to attack him. Sammy's going to turn now. Sammy's going to turn now. And he got to the end of the segment. It was like, oh, he did it. That was really nice. So yeah, I think like you said, it was good. It was a nice celebration, and it was good. There was no turning. I think after a win on Saturday, he needed the celebration, and like you said, it will be interesting to see who he's feuding with next.
There are two other points I think it's worth mentioning. Whilst we mentioned Jay, another one would be Gunther. His attack on Pat McAfee, that felt very real. WWE did really good in making that come across really real, because Pat McAfee looked like he was going purple at times during that chokehold. They did good with that one. I'm interested to see how that works out. I don't know how I feel about a Pat McAfee Gunther match. It might work, it might not, but it would be nice to see who will come and support the announcers for this one.
Get a better performance out of Pat McAfee than we do out of Michael Cole when Michael Cole wrestles. But again, I'm not too sure. I know Pat loves the business and he puts his heart and soul into, but he's a great commentator. I don't know if he's going to be a good in-ringer, so I don't know if they should head that way. But they've got to try and give everyone a bit of everything, ain't they? So, and then, like I said earlier on the tag match,
it's just a low point. I don't like this. The New Day Viking Raiders should have had longer. I think that's a missed opportunity. But I wanted to talk about Dominic Mysterio, like superhero of the day. I've said to you before about Vegas being a really weird space for cheers. Yep. He was loved. The crowd popped for him with his match against Penta, which wasn't too bad. I do think that Dominic Mysterio doesn't get enough credit for the hard work he puts in that ring, and he has done over the last few years. I think we're going to get. It looks very much like Dominic Mysterio is the person who's going to turn on Finn, and we're still going to have an evil Finn and a good Dominic, which doesn't work for me. Dominic's got to be the bad guy at least for about another year, I think.
Yeah, again, it's the problem relates with WWE. Once they notice someone's a crowd favourite, they turn them quick. Because of, again, but that might be a business side because the merch will sell, ticket sales will go up and all that side. That's the only problem with business and product. But I agree with you. I think Dom does need another year. And Dom's a great heel.
Keeps popping for him. They're not going to have a lot of choice. So I think you just got to be careful with that one.
On to SmackDown.
Well, I think the first thing we spoke about the John Cena moment.
So bringing up Cena again. Sorry, I know it was later on in the show, but the segment with R-Truth, I'm glad he didn't turn on R-Truth, but the one question I've got coming out of it, why was it Jimmy Uso to be the one that spoke with Truth and shout after John? Are they hinting at something along that line? Because it was just weird that it was Jimmy.
I think it was just because it was Jimmy. And I think they wanted to include him on the TV programme. He did such a good job of selling the injury by Gunther the other week. I think he does deserve a little bit of TV time. So for me, Jimmy makes sense looking at the other people on the roster. I don't want to say it's a throwaway moment, but it's not something that's going to matter, I don't think, in the long term. I'm glad R-Truth made the comment. I think it's brilliant. It always cheers me up when I see him on the TV.
I think, wild theory, but R-Truth's going to be the one that turns John Cena face right at the end. And the closing moment of John Cena's career is going to be him and R-Truth in the ring, raising their hands.
Well, I think that could be it. I think that could be the way to do it. And that for me would be brilliant. So the next big one was, I think it was really important, was Tiffany in ring and being called out by Jade. I thought to myself, oh, this is a bit early. I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. I was greatly surprised how well they worked together in the ring. This is a match I need to see later down the line with a better ending. It was great. It was hard happening. You can see Tiffany's still got bruises. She's although she's got makeup, you can see some of those bruises are out there. She's in still a lot of pain. And she's working exceptionally well. I'm really pleased. The match was going really good right up until the DQ finish from Naomi, and then not the returning giant Nia Jax, which is good because I think that's going to be an interesting tell. Nia coming back after Tiffany, that could be the end of that story. I'm looking forward to that one. Tiffany is definitely starting to work as hard as Liv did last year, so maybe she's going to be the breakout of this year. I did think, though, that Naomi and Jade's match was the end. I thought the WrestleMania match was the right way to end it. The fact that they're going to prolong the feud for a little bit longer, I'm not sure I know how I feel about that one.
But again, it might be going back to what we were saying earlier, because there's only 2 weeks to build Backlash, it's better to latch on to things that have got a bit of a story, just so you don't have to do as much build to then maybe after Backlash, because they've got that big break between the next PLV or whatever you call them nowadays, to then be able to build the stories properly. Because like I said, I agree with you. I think it was nice to have Tiffany and Jade together for a bit. I agree it's way too early, but maybe they were just testing the waters a bit to see how they connect together. Then they've managed, with what they did at the ending, I know it wasn't a great ending, but then they've managed to now separate them because Jade's got to go off and have a story continue with Naomi, and now Tiffany's first defence looks like it's going to be Jax. And then that still just helps build a Backlash because it's already an established story. So maybe it might end at Backlash, hopefully. But I agree with you, it should have ended at Mania. But it's just this 2-week gap that makes it a problem.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you're right with the fact that it's just too short a period to build anything up further. So that one makes sense. Nia Jax coming back was a perfect way to do that.
Yeah.
I'd let Tiffany hold the belt for a while. I really would. Charlotte obviously off TV now until whenever she's ready to come back. I think that works as well. I think the women's division, and we're going to come on to that match in a minute, the other match, that works exceptionally well. Really pleased with that. I think Tiffany beats Nia, and then she sets up a program. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that we get a Chelsea Green push for the world title.
And if Tiffany continues doing what she's doing, do you think they will head to a Liv Tiffany match? I know they're different brands, but...
Well, if we're going to, dare I say, if we have another Crown Jewel Championship thing where we have the best against the best, that would work for me. I think she's looking better and better every week, Tiffany. And she's working well with every kind of style. She got the hard hitters like Charlotte and Jade, but she's also Nia Jax. And then you've got the women that are a little bit more nimble, and she's doing fantastic work with that. I think she's great to watch at the moment. I really do. You've got the other women's match, and Zelina Vega beating Chelsea Green for the United States Championship, which I didn't think was going to happen. I'm a little bit shocked that they moved the belt off her as a result. Zelina was not somebody I would have thought would have won the belt, but I'm pleased for her. I truly am. Chelsea Green, as I said now, I think she's got to be elevated to that top tier level. She's taken that belt and she's done as good a job as she could with it. I think you now move her up to the main event, the women's main event. I think
do you think that's why they might have done the change then, so they can start elevating?
Yeah, that would be where I would go. I would have moved the belt off her, but I'd have built a little bit up for it. I think the fact that Chelsea's now lost that belt, she'll get a rematch. I would have thought so, and then after Backlash, I think that's when you start building it up. And that could be a really good match. Chelsea Green is highly underrated. She's a fantastic worker. Her promo skills are unreal. So yeah, that's where I would go with that one.
I think this week as well showed that SmackDown has got a much stronger women's division than Raw by miles.
I think other than the main event, SmackDown's got the better roster. I think Raw has a much better main event scene. But SmackDown's the women's division, their tag team division, their mid-card belt division. Yeah, I think they've got a better range.
Yeah, and talking about mid-card in a way, but I don't think these guys are mid-card. LA Knight, Jacob for two, that segment I really enjoyed. McIntyre's now put himself in that scene. Priest again. So, do you think they're heading for like a little fatal four-way at Backlash? Because it's a nice little 2-week build.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way. If you wanted to move the belt onto Drew, who, by the way, is getting cheered more and more week in, week out. People are really starting to grow back to him. So this worked. whatever they were doing with him, the slow build to turning heel worked. It really did. I think he's connecting with a lot of people. It would protect Jacob, but if I'm honest, I think I'd probably have Jacob pin Damian Priest, and I'd go with a 4-way, and I'd have him pin that way. I like all 4 of these guys. I love the interaction between Drew and LA Knight.
Yep.
With the mic skills, you just know full well you're like, this is going to work for them. I want to see them both get in. The match that they had was interesting. I think a second DQ finish was poor though. Next week we'll probably get McIntyre versus Fatu for the US title because he's the #1 contender, but I think will lead to a fatal 4-way.
Yeah, it'll probably be another DQ at the end of next week, and then Nemesis will come out and say, right, we'll sell this at Backlash, all 4 of you, type thing. I think that's the only way they can sort of lead into that.
Yeah, no, totally agree.
Another thing I did see, obviously, The Miz. The Miz's mic skills, and I quite like the way he's doing the "what about me? I've been here, you forget about me" gimmick again. But I don't know sort of where that come from. It's sort of out of nowhere.
Segment before was him talking with Carmelo Hayes, obviously the Andre the Giant winner. Yeah. Usually somebody that they forget. I don't think they will this time. I think they're going to build on this one. But they're a really good partnership. I like where they're going with these two. I think it works really well. The Miz came out, cut a very impassioned promo. I liked it. He said what I think a lot of people was, this is a guy that has been around for 20 years. I think we all forget about that. He's main evented WrestleMania. He beat John Cena in a main event, all right, be it a little bit of a rubbish finish. He is a consistent worker. If you want somebody to work, he's the guy that you go to. But he was obviously interrupted by the returning Aleister Black, whose character development is great. The entrance was brilliant. The way he flipped into the ring into a seated position had me going. Black Mass, again, a very solid finish. So they've got a match next week. I'll be curious to see how that goes. I'm interested to see where we go with that one.
Because it's a Black return, though, do you reckon it is going to go to Black, or because what was the point bringing him back and then making him lose his first match back? So
yeah, no, I think he's got to win that match. I don't think it's got to go very long either. I think it's almost got to be a squash match, and then you could set up a Carmelo Hayes feud with Aleister Black, which would be dynamite.
Also, then that will lead into a split further down the line.
Yeah, I really do. I really do.
And like I said, I agree with you as well. I think it is nice bringing in the winner of the Andre, because they made such a big thing of the tournament when it was first revealed, and like you said, it seemed to have lost its shine over the last couple of years. It's nice that it's taking some TV time up again, and it's going to mean. It looks like it's going to mean something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, this is where we're building up those mid-carders, the kind of the Carmelo Hayes, the Miz. Now we've got Aleister Black, Andrade. You can have Ray Phoenix come back. I think we've got some good, solid stars that are ready to go to the next level. We do want to talk about the introduction of Fraxium. NXT, I've watched them in NXT a few times. They obviously had their big matches during the European tour. They were fantastic. I'm glad they got the opportunity. They look great.
Yeah, and obviously because they're a tag team, the goal is for the championship. Do you think that's going to come sooner, or do you think they're going to give them a nice little run to establish themselves?
I think they need I think they need a couple of matches before they go anywhere near the belts. But again, we're back to SmackDown having such a great tag team division right now. There are there's about 5 or 6 different tag teams that I think could well win the belt. And that's the first time I've felt like that for a very long time.
And I think it shows again, especially with a team like that, when NXT works, it works. Because the chemistry between those guys, they've learned their craft there. And it shows why an idea like the Performance Centre and an NXT is a really good idea for the wrestling business.
Agreed. The guys and girls coming through NXT are just absolutely breaking the mold. They're all fantastic.
And like it was said over WrestleMania weekend, and until the point come up, I didn't realise 85 to 90% of WrestleMania was NXT stars. Yeah. So the main event, like,
oh my word.
In a way, I know everyone's saying it should have been at WrestleMania, but I think if it was at WrestleMania, it would have stole everything. It would have took away from everything because those guys. So for people who don't know, you had the Motor City Machine Guns,
DIY, and the Street Profits.
And I know like one big match, but sort of people are dubbing them the Hardys and the Dudleys, sort of that era. Like the chemistry between all six of them during that match was fantastic.
Yeah, as I said, the tag team division is fantastic, is top level. I'm reminded back to when you had the SmackDown 6, going back to like 2002 when we had all those three tag teams.
Yeah.
This for me is where they are. They are fantastic. I love watching all three teams. I disagree. I think you put it on Mania, we go from an average Mania to a much better Mania. I think when you see that match, everybody knows they've got to now raise their game if they want to try and beat it. If you'd have replaced it instead of the New Day match, I wouldn't have been disappointed at all.
So having the Street Profits retain, which it was really good because I thought a couple of times it could have been anyone's. There weren't no clear obvious to the ending. Do you think it helps elevate them, or did you think they needed to switch the belt during that match?
I'll be honest with you, if any of those three teams had won on that night, I wouldn't have felt disappointed. I am a big Motor City Machine Guns fan. I think the work that they're doing is fantastic. I'm glad they finally got their flowers. But that said, I haven't got a problem with the Street Profits. They've worked hard as well. And I think having seen some of the absolutely crazy bumps that people were taking and getting up pretty quickly, wow, is all I can just say, wow.
So I've been a massive Motor City Machine Gun fan since the TNA days. Because I did go for a stage where TNA was my top promotion to watch before Hogan and Bischoff completely ruined it. And I've always been a big fan of it. I'm just worried that because they got older, we weren't going to get them. I thought them TNA days were their heyday, but they seem just to be getting better and better the older they get.
No, exactly. And they are bringing the best out of the people like the Street Profits, who a couple of years ago I'd have said we're a good tag team. Now they're a great tag team. I think that's what you've done. You've taken that division now and you've elevated it, and everybody's bringing their A game every week.
Yeah, and I think like with that match being as good as it was, it's sort of, and a couple of things that SmackDown opened up, as you said earlier on, I think it ended the week from what was a bit of a disappointing WrestleMania to, I've got a bit more intrigue again to see where WWE are going. I know, like we keep saying throughout this episode, the 2-week build up to Backlash is a bit of an issue because it makes things stop-start. But I think after Backlash goes, I think we've got a real exciting end to the year coming for WWE.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's where you're going to, as you say, there's almost like a 2-month break between Backlash and Money in the Bank, which I think really works. I think agreed. I think this week's, certainly SmackDown has outshone Raw, but there are definitely highlights to show that they are building towards a better WWE.
And is there, before we end, is there anything that you've heard to look forward to for this coming's Raw and SmackDown?
As I said, we've got an Aleister Black Miz match that looks like it could be good. What I would try to do is I try to keep the Cena Orton feud to 1 show a week rather than carrying it through for 2. I think that will be a problem for them if they're not careful.
And also, by doing that, if we're going by Cena's countdown, he's going to be wasted appearances. He's got 25 left now, or whatever. So it was 27 on Monday, 26 Friday. We'll now leave 25. Yeah, if you keep bringing them out for silly build-ups between, it's going to ruin the moments that we could have at the end of the year. So I agree with you. I think it just needs to be. And to be honest, I think it needs to be SmackDown. I think because you've got the Seth, I think because you've got the Seth stuff going on Raw, you don't need Cena on Raw as well.
No, I agree. Absolutely, 100% agree. That's where you go. You can build up promos with both Punk, Reigns, and Rollins. All of them showing they've got great promo skills. Don't congest it too much. I'd say give another couple of guys some flowers. Rusev's first match, I'm hoping, will be next week, so that'll be something to look forward to.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Tim, thank you again for your time this week, and we'll see.
Thank you, Lee.
We'll see whatever's evolving, and I'll catch up again with you next week.
Yeah, we'll catch up next week, mate.